Overpricing comics, I'm not going to sit here and virtue signal and tell you how to run your business, and I'm not going to pretend like I don't occasionally overprice some stuff. What I am going to do is talk about what I do in those very rare oddball scenarios in which overpricing is what you should do. I want you guys to drop down below, is it ever okay to overprice? What scenarios would you find yourself overpricing something? When is a situation where you might knowingly overpay for something? And now for the most underpriced thing you've ever heard of, go ahead and subscribe, like, and comment, because one of you is going to get an ASM 300 9.8 white pages completely for free once we hit 50,000 subs. I put together a list of times where I think it's totally acceptable to put something over the fair market value. The first thing and most obvious is when you've got something you don't want to sell. Let's say I've got some crazy grail. Maybe there's only 10 of them on the census and I'm really not interested in selling this thing. And someone says, hey man, I really want it. Can you meet me at fair market value? I would probably say, not really. This is something I don't want to sell. If you really want it, you can give me a little extra on the top, and I guess I can think about selling this thing. Totally fair. Let's not pretend that that's not totally normal. In the world of modern books where there's 5,000 9.8s of something and you can find it anywhere, I don't think that applies. But if it's some super tough, scarce thing where you've really are attached to it and you don't want to let it go, I totally see you doing this, and I think that's totally fine. Next, we're going to keep it talking about scarce. I'm going to kind of hone in on the golden age here. Whenever I get golden age books, sometimes they're hard to find the fair market value of. Maybe there hasn't been a sale in that grade for many years. If I think it's $500 based on other grades, I put it at $500. And sometimes I'll even get people saying, hey, you were really irresponsible putting that for only $500. That's a golden age book and should have gone at like $750 at least. Calm down, dude. I was doing my best with the information and tools I was given, but they're kind of right about, I think it's possible that the quote-unquote fair market value doesn't really apply for the golden age, I've come to find. Because of its extreme scarcity and desirability, maybe should be priced a little bit higher than you think. I haven't bit the bullet on overpricing for the golden age yet, but I'm definitely noticing that maybe I should be, because everybody else is. All right, next is going to be if you have a more desirable signature. Let's say you've got a Jim Starlin signed Infinity Gauntlet #1. But the other guy's got a George Perez signed Infinity Gauntlet #1. My bet would be the more valuable book is the George Perez, because George Perez is no longer with us. Whenever you have a artist or writer that has passed, that to me would read as the more valuable signature. And I don't think they would be sold for the same price. And you might say, hey, all the sales of this are X. Yes, but I have a Stan Lee or I have a George Perez. It's just not the same. Not all signatures are equal, and sometimes it's going to result in what you would think is an overpricing, but really it's just a more appropriate price for an artist or writer who's now not with us. Next one is going to be exclusive to slabs. I think it's okay to overprice slightly when you have white pages and maybe all of the last sales have been off-white. Some of you guys know I had that crazy Green Lantern collection. Third best in the world, actually, according to the CGC registry. And you bet your butt that I had some crazy high grades, some the highest grade that exists. Some people are interested in those books and they reached out to me and they wanted to match at some of the fair market value for some of those books. And while I did, it did occur to me like, hey, you know what? All of those were off-white pages. Mine was white pages. So I think sometimes moving forward, especially when it comes to the sale of some of my Green Lantern books and anything with scarcity or extreme limit, I'm going to be more conscious of the whole white pages thing. Were there any recent sales of white page copies? No? And mine is a white page copy? Yeah, I could see that being overpriced, or at least a little bit over what the other ones did. Second to last is when price guides are just wrong. Most of the time, I find that price guides will say something is worth more than what it is. But sometimes there are times where price guides say something's like $5 and it's really like 10. Or they say something's like $40 and it's really like 75. I often find this is seemingly more of the case with DC than Marvel. I feel like Marvel keys have been so realized and understood and picked over and all that, that people seem to get this. And most of the times when you see price guides, Marvel is overpriced. Jimmy Olsen, 134. First, very weak cameo, but it counts, cameo of Darkseid. Sometimes I see the price guides often very badly miss this one. Now, when you look at the graded candidates, let's say you've got a copy that's so nice you think it's in the 9s, and you look up a graded copy of a 9.0, it's so much higher than what the maximum raw value is on these price guides. That's just a book that I know is worth a lot more than some of the price guides will say. All right, and the last one here is going to be one-of-a-kind items. Original art, original sketches, a custom statue, a custom whatever. The only copy on the census of a slab or something. This is an awkward situation when you can't find any comparables because no comparables exist. You're at the mercy of your own creativity about what you think this should be. That's the sort of stuff I tend to be like, okay, we're going to try this maybe a little bit higher than I might think because it's the only one that exists. And I don't really know, so we're going to give it a shot. And you know what? Most of the time that one-of-a-kind stuff sits for a long time if it's quote-unquote overpriced, and then you lower the price a little bit, and then it does go once it comes back down to what could be more of the estimated fair market value. So it's not that overpricing necessarily means you've got a sale. In fact, most time, if you overprice, you're going to be waiting a long time. But these one-of-a-kind stuff, I think, deserve to be overpriced. There it is. There's nothing like them. They're one of a kind. That's incredibly rare to me and to many collectors out there. Now, I'll tell you a couple things before I close the video that I don't like. There are some shops that treat themselves like a museum, where basically that whole you don't want to sell something, they basically do that with every book. You know, they overprice everything. I don't want to shun any business or anything like that. Everyone's going to run their business differently. But it is awkward when you can easily hop online and find something cheaper, or maybe even way cheaper. Once in a while, I do see some shops that are known for getting cream of the crop stuff. That might be actually an example of a trusted seller that is overpriced, and weirdly, everybody's just okay with it. And I think it's just because of the prestige and quality of books they might get in. I definitely know some big heavy hitters out there that put some prices that I, on the surface level, would think would be really high. And then I realized, like, you know what? Look how hard it is to get this stuff in, and look at the sheer collection of stuff that they have. I kind of get it. It's not how I run my business, but I do kind of get it. I know Comic-Cons in 2025, people have been talking what I've been saying for years, which is, these prices are too high. Why would I go here when I know the price of this stuff and these people are just going to overprice? Totally fair question. I like to be about 10 to 20% under fair market value when I price a book, because I put a lot of stock in return business. It's how this works for me, and I think it's been working pretty well. Some of these cons are not just 1.5, they're like 2 or maybe even 3 times over what the fair market value is. I'm sure we all have our opinions on that. I do understand what it's like to be a struggling comic book business in which it is really hard to get stuff in. But I also know that a lot of the shops that are overpricing also pay a lot less for stuff. And to me, that's just greed. I'm sure it's not as black and white as we want it to be. I'm sure there's a lot of moving factors in the overpricing for some of these shops, but it does make you wonder. Also, drop down below, when is a situation where you might knowingly overpay for something? Let me know, and as always, keep on hunting. Make sure to come on down to Sentiment Depot's Antiques and Collectibles, located at 238 West Delaware Ave in Pennington, New Jersey. Find so many great books for just $1 and the lowest prices on key comics around. Enjoy a huge selection of graded comics priced up to 20% lower than current fair market value. We are open from Wednesday to Sunday, closed Monday, Tuesday. You got a collection you want to sell? Bring that too. Can't wait to see you there.